Today, Jess and I will be discussing the call of Cthulhu, a story which can only be conceived by the sea's fancy. The story started off with Francis Wayland Thorsten. He is the executor of his grand-uncle's estate. While he's going through his uncle's stuff, he notices various manuscripts. This is where the story cuts off in three major branches. These chapters are called The Horror in Clay, The Tale of Inspector Legras, and The Madness from the Sea. The story in clay is about a man called Wilcox and an effigy he's made in his dreams. The effigy depicts Cthulhu. Chapter 2 is about Inspector Legras and his investigation of a cult in Louisiana. When he encounters the cult, they are conducting a ritual sacrifice, a human sacrifice, to the great Cthulhu. The third and final chapter is about an old Norwegian sailor that has encountered the lost city of Ole, where Cthulhu is said to sleep. They accidentally awaken Cthulhu. The story ends with Francis destroying all evidence of Cthulhu, because only the idea of him is enough to drive people insane. He figured no one should be privy to the tenebrous truth because it's simply too horrendous.
Our main question is the call of Cthulhu an allegory for ancient Greek mythology? If we compare Greek mythology to the call of Cthulhu, we see a lot of similarities. In the following slides, we are going to give a few examples. In the first quote, we see that Cthulhu is stuck at R'lyeh. If we compare this to Typhon, who was a monstrous snaky giant and the most deadly creature in Greek mythology, who also, after a battle with Zeus, which he lost, was buried underneath Mount Etna. They both were stuck at the same place for a long time. The second quote mentions the Great Old Ones. The Great Old Ones were probably the Titans, who were members of the second generation of divine beings. They descended from the primordial deities, and the Titans have a lot in common with the Great Old Ones.
Besides nameless rites and human sacrifices, there were certain queer, hereditary rituals addressed to a supreme outer devil. This quote from the book is similar to the Chthonic, which means subterranean or beneath the ground cults, which were mainly worshipping the Chthonic gods of Greek culture, mainly being Hades and Persephone, the god and goddess of the underworld. These cults also conducted ritual sacrifice. With him he bore the subject of his visit, a grotesque, repulsive, and apparently very ancient stone statuette whose origins he was at a loss to remember. This quote is similar to how the ancient Greek built temples around time, statuettes for a place of worship. The idol in the story is worshipped in a makeshift temple in the swamps of Louisiana. The sacrifices are carried out in front of the statuette of Cthulhu, similar to how the Greeks conducted their ritual sacrifices in front of the statues of the gods.
Here we see the last quote we used, which was used before the story actually started. It says, "Consciousness was manifested, perhaps, in shapes and forms long since withdrawn before the tide of advancing humanity, forms of which poetry and legend alone have caught a flying memory and called them gods, monsters, mythical beings of all sorts and kinds." This quote is from Algernon Blackwood, and he openly refers to using mythical beings as an inspiration for a story. Lovegood is a highly educated person, so it's a good guess that he uses Greek mythology as an inspiration for his stories, especially for the Call of Cthulhu.
So the query is the Call of Cthulhu, an allegory for Greek mythology, is indeed correct. Howard Philip Lovecraft took a lot of inspiration from Greek mythology. The polytheme titans, albeit a bit less Kafkaesque than the Lovecraftian old Great Ones, share a great deal of similarities from the people back in the old days, thinking that their thoughts belonged to the gods and were simply projected into their minds. Were you thirsty for some wine? This was Bacchus' doing. Fell in love with someone? Eros is doing. It is similar to how Cthulhu communicates with people in their dreams and tells them what to do. Furthermore, the points previously mentioned also lend credence to the positive nature of this query, which means that Call of Cthulhu is indeed an allegory for Greek mythology.